Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome and a happy 2019 to everyone. For those of you that are in the audience, we do have a certain amount of routine beginning of the year things that we have to do. It's just to make sure that government runs consistent from year to year. The agenda is before us. Do we have any corrections, deletions?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to remove Fiscal Officer Pro Tem.
That has been deleted or removed. Anything else?
I need to add fiscal officer number 8, fire escrow release.
I have one space. I'm sorry, what was that again?
Fire escrow release.
Yeah, that's the one that we have here, the hard copy of that here.
I need to add items under zoning.
Okay,
Item 1 through 4, resolutions 1 through 4.
one. Would that be 2 through 4? Is that?
Yes, sir.
2.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Are the resolutions in the meeting packet already?
They're in front of the trustees.
And does Mr. Wolf have one?
Yes,
Okay.
They're in the packet?
yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, we've added that. Anything else? Under trustees, I'm gonna add speed buggy. Speed buggy.
Speed budget.
I think that's the nickname we have for it.
Unless we want to name it.
Give it a, like, official name? Anything else? All right, the agenda will stand that as edited. So the first thing we have to do is the election of officers. I will entertain a motion for president.
I will move that we nominate and elect John Sabo as president of the Plain Township Board of Trustees.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino,
Yes.
Mr. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes.
Yes.
And I will move to nominate Al Lino as vice president.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino,
Yes.
Mr. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes.
Yes.
Okay. Having done that then, we will go to the beginning of the year resolutions.
I'll move on beginning of year resolution for Robert's Rules of Order.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino,
Yes.
Mr. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes.
Yes.
I will move for beginning of the year resolution number 4.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino,
Yes.
Mr. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes.
Yes. I will move on beginning of year resolution number 5, retaining, that all full-time and part-time employees are retained until the first meeting in 2020,
I'll second.
except as the board may act.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino,
Yes.
Mr. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes.
Yes.
On behalf of your department heads, thank you.
And me.
On behalf of the board. Work, everything that pertains to work rules and policies, I will move for the
Second.
beginning of the year resolution number 6.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes. I will move on beginning of year resolution number 7, which specifies the holidays that are provided and observed by all full-time personnel.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mutual aid for our fire department, I will move on beginning of year resolution number 8.
I will second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Beginning of the year resolution number 9 deals with the coordination of fire and law enforcement agencies, and I'll move for.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
We are number 10.
I thought it was
I will move on the volunteer firefighters board that is necessary per the Ohio Revised Code, which is beginning the year resolution number 10.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Beginning of the year resolution number 11 is to designate Lisa Campbell as the official designee for our board for public records training.
I will so move.
It's been moved and seconded, moved by Mr. Claus, seconded by Mr. Lino. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
We sure nobody else wants to take on this?
Yeah.
I'm looking for
I think-
that long
Rob
part.
just said yes.
I believe the word was nope.
I did handle the public records request, so it's always a good refresher.
I can nominate you there.
Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Beginning of the year resolution number 12, I will move to appoint Scott. You currently serve on that, right?
I'm the SCOG executive committee
Yeah, he does.
board member.
All right.
I'll just preface it with this. I'll be happy to continue doing it if something changes in this year that it may impact my ability. Granted, it's only quarterly, but
Okay.
just as long as.
So for now, it's okay
I can be the
to insert your
primary.
name, so we'll put to appoint Scott Haas. And
Yeah, how about
I think I was the alternate before, so put me in as the alternate. So I'll move on that resolution.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
And can we make sure we get just a copy of this down to Chris Nichols as a SCOG administrator so they have it for their records?
Beginning of the year, number 13, deals with requesting advancement for taxes, so I will move on that resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes. Beginning of year resolution number 14, the start hazardous response resolution, also move on.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Beginning of the year, resolution number 15 deals with the waiving of applicable zoning fees for governmental agencies and other political subdivisions, and I will move on that resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino,
Yes.
Mr. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes.
Yes. I will move on beginning of year resolution number 16, which authorizes the township to pay costs of refreshments associated for those attending township association, zoning inspectors, fire chiefs, and other intergovernmental meetings hosted in 2019.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino,
Yes.
Mr. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes.
Yes. I will so move on beginning of year resolution number 17, gov deals for unwanted assets.
I'll second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion.
Yes,
roll-
sorry, discussion is, I removed the gov deals, so it could be any internet auction. So we're not tied to just one, although we typically use gov deals, but in case anything will come up, and then we will be posting the notice in the repository, I believe on the 18th by law.
Okay.
Good clarification on that. That does make it a little easier to be able to have some latitude.
Any type of internet auction then.
Yeah. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Lino,
Yes.
Mr. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes.
Yes. I will move on beginning of year resolution number 18, Computech agreement for computer support.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino,
Yes.
Mr. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes.
Yes. I will move on beginning of year resolution number 19 for Planet Technologies. And this has to do with our agreement for Office 365.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino,
Yes.
Mr. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes.
Yes.
Beginning of the year number 20 deals with the transfer of funds between meetings and authorizes the fiscal officer to be able to accomplish that, and I will move on that resolution.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion.
Did we, just a question, prior to Tom,
Never.
did we ever do this?
Never, and it has really
It's worked.
made the ability of our departments to function between meetings a lot easier. So all the department heads and administrative assistants are extremely grateful for that.
Your CPA wisdom.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that,
that's for sure.
yeah, that allows us to do business without having a meeting to make
Correct.
us do business.
Mhm.
So,
But we used to
yeah,
have to do special meetings,
Correct.
so
Right,
Yes.
right.
it's really beneficial and
Yes.
effective.
Very good.
good idea for that. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes,
Yes.
Mr. Lino,
Yes.
Mr. Sabo,
Yes. And the last one, beginning of the year, resolution number 21, deals with our ability to be able to discard by Ohio Revised Code, sale of scrap metal, and I will move on that resolution.
Second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes,
Yes.
Mr. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Lino.
Yes.
Okay, so that was a necessary thing. We don't have a sheriff's report, but based on, is there anything significant, maybe since the last meeting and now that, you know, of anything that's going on? I don't mean to surprise you with that, but,
Nothing significant or that's changed the report, just everybody's out there working hard and trying to make sure your taxpayers get their money's worth.
cool, all right,
We
good.
are having a discussion on one of our Charger vehicles. Needs
Correct.
a costly repair. It's at 88,000 miles now. We don't purchase Chargers anymore. It was,
That was that time window where
Yeah.
they didn't have
Yep.
the,
Yep,
so we may keep an older spare instead of repairing it. But Lieutenant Carver's looking into that. We'll make a decision. I said that's in their wheelhouse, so
mhm,
just to make the board aware of that.
thank you.
88,000 and the spare is like 140,000, and they,
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
it'll still keep going better than the Charger.
Wow.
that's sad.
Yeah.
That is.
Exactly why I don't own Dodge products.
All right, let's move to the fiscal officer's report. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. Fiscal Officer number 1 is a request for resolution to authorize the payment of penny warrants in amount of $130,621.41.
Also move.
I'll second
It's
it.
been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 2 is a request for resolution to authorize payment of regular payroll in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 3 is a request for resolution to authorize the payment for the following medical claims.
So,
I'll move on fiscal officer number 3,
second.
and moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 4 is the financial report for the month of December 2018. If anyone has any questions, I'm available after the meeting. Fiscal Officer number 5 is a request for resolution to enter into the attached agreement with Finley to complete the actuarial valuation pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 9.833 and to authorize payment from Fund 01A28E not to exceed the amount of $2,500.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 6 is a request for resolution to approve sick pay bonus as stated in the negotiated contract for the members of the Plain Township Firefighters Association as follows.
I will move on fiscal officer number 6.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 7A is a request for resolution to authorize the following transfers for 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 7B is a request for resolution to authorize the following transfers for 2019.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 8 is a request for resolution to authorize the release of insurance proceeds being retained for a loss caused by fire on April 14th, 2018 at 2306 Demington Avenue Northwest in the amount of $30,784. The check is to be made payable to Joe and Antonio Martino and mailed to 2306 Demington Avenue Northwest, Canton, Ohio, is authorized by Fire Safety Inspector Scott Kelly, Division of Inspections and Investigations.
I will move on fiscal officer number
I'll
8.
second
It's
it.
been moved and seconded, discussion. Just for the record, Chief Schallenberger is not present, but in his absence is Deputy Chief Reed. And this is pretty much just a common thing. Normally, we get a certain percentage from the insurance that goes into a non, yeah, it doesn't, it gets no interest, non-interest account. And it's held there until we are satisfied with either the cleanup, the tear down, or the remodel. Is that correct? Is that accurate?
Yes, that is.
Okay. And I think that's based on a percentage, so that's what this is. So. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Abstain.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And that concludes the fiscal officer report.
Thank you. That takes us to the administrator, Ms. Campbell.
Thank you. Before you this evening, I have a resolution to enter into an attached yard service agreement between the Plain Township Trustee, Stark County, Ohio, and Earthenwood Products for the transportation and disposal of yard waste collection for a term of 36 months at a rate of $1.55 per container or dump trailer and $3.10 per open top trailer, and to authorize payments from Fund 01A 26Y, and to appoint myself to sign the service agreements.
10 or 3010 or 310,000?
310.
Basic.
Did I say 3,010? No.
Which I
That's right, so
$3.10.
that's what I thought at first.
Oh, well, don't I wish?
Yes.
I'm gonna
We'll
move.
pass it like
Yeah,
that, at least if
yeah.
you.
I'm gonna move
negotiate.
on administrator number 1 for the sake of discussion, to get us there.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, now we can discuss it.
Okay, so I did talk with David Held because this is the yard waste agreement, but it's dependent on the funding that we get from the Joint Solid Waste District. So I talked to him and said, can you ensure us that we will have, and you know I tried to get us more money, but the same amount of funding grant-wise that we had this year for 3 years, because, you know, if we entered into 12 months, then the price goes up $20 per container, which doesn't sound like a lot, but the amount of yard waste we get, it is a lot. So he did promise that for the next 3 years, we'd get the money that we've got this year. Now, as the board's very aware, that money did not last us from spring to fall to present. The board has paid probably, you know, if I look at salaries and everything, probably close to $40,000 from either the general fund or road department. So the first step is to lock in the lowest price for 3 months, and then myself, Rob, and
36
Joe are looking at, 36 months, are looking at a schedule for next year, so that our big time, of course, is fall yard waste. We've made some changes as far as what kind of vehicles can come in, and not taking stumps or tree branches larger than 6 inches around. So the goal is next year, although we stayed open almost the entire time, is to stay within that budget. So this is where we're at.
And obviously, we look at this hard.
Yes.
You know, we know it is a service that the citizens take advantage of, but it's, in some cases, sometimes it's a logistical nightmare. And, you know, we're at the mercy, you know, we try to schedule and plan, but one thing we can't schedule and plan for is weather. We can't tell, for example, what the weather's gonna be like as to when the first part of the year we're gonna open it, or the last part of the year we're gonna close it.
Yeah.
And
Given this year, it could have stayed open, you know, people are still bringing in leaves, and it got to the point where we were spending so much money, we did have to close only a week early.
Unusual year with leaves.
and we do take the grant money, which requires that site to be open for everyone, so we can't limit it.
No.
But unfortunately, when we run out of that grant money and it stays open, that means that the taxpayers of Plain Township are spending our money for other people's
Correct.
possible discarding of them. So, we just, you know, we have to look at it and monitor it, and, you know, I think we did a good job this past year with all the unknowns. I mean,
Well, and
we
the
just-
weather nailed us, because we haven't had a winter, so it really did, so.
Yeah, unusual.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And again, we'll keep working to get dates of, you know, proposed opens. Resolution number 2 is to accept and approve and authorize payment to Computech for the labor, installation, and equipment for the 24-hour surveillance cameras to be placed at Diamond Park in the amount not to exceed $8,760.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion.
Those are partially installed already.
We are, that project's underway.
Yes, and Mr. Haynes, if you could tell the board where the cameras are covering right now and what the future plan is.
We've got everything inside and outside of the actual complex now surveilled. So we've got the field, we've got the concessions area front and back, we've got the room that we rent out, the rec room, the hall, and then all 4 corners, so we can see the utility equipment that the Parks Department keeps, we can see the back of the property, we can see the west lot, and then we can surveil the entire parking lot. And we have a fixed camera that we're dialing in for plates ingress and egress from the entrance of the Diamond Park. So then we're currently working with the road department to facilitate the power coming in to the west lot to allow us to put 4 cameras down there and have the same similar coverage down there, just all outside.
And the camera system is available. Eric and Rob have those cameras on their cell phones, so if any of you can have Eric install it, so there's 24-hour surveillance. If somebody would call about an issue, they could hop right on and take a look, and of course, get whoever involved that needed to be.
Yeah, so, and as all surveillance cameras go, if they're facing the street, and law enforcement would need to be able to look at those to verify or confirm or rule out something, they still have access to that as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and they know that because we work close with them.
Yeah, we've worked both ways.
Yeah.
Sheriff's Office has obviously asked for some of our surveillance. We've had to get them involved in some of our yard waste, but had a great relationship with them.
Good.
Yeah, so now all of our parks are under surveillance, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, AEP still has some work to do on the west lot, so we're, that's a project that'll probably go for, call it another month, and then we'll have the west lot. We had to get AEP to allow us to get some power poles set, and Joe and I, we're working on that today. We're gonna get those poles set, hopefully wired up next week, get an inspection, get the power wires connected.
Eric and I tried to get permission to use the existing AEP poles, however, they would not grant that.
Yeah, they just basically blanket say there are poles, no equipment, it's just it doesn't matter who you are, no equipment.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Item number 3 is a resolution to authorize the trustee, fiscal officer, administrator, department heads, which includes the finance director, to attend the 2019 Ohio Township Association Winter Conference from January 5th, or January 29th to February 2nd. I'm just making up dates. And to authorize payment of $50 for a pre-registration fee, lodging and reimbursement, and parking according to our travel policy.
So moved.
Second's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And that's the end of the
Thanks,
administrative report.
Lisa. And that takes us to Fire Department Chief Reed.
Thank you. Fire Department number 1 is a resolution to authorize the purchase and payment of gasoline, oil, diesel fuel, and miscellaneous from McIntosh Oil Company at a cost not to exceed $20,000 to be taken from account 28A06C.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fire Department number 2 is a resolution to authorize payment to Underground Services Incorporated for sanitary sewer lateral connection for fire station number 4 at 7858 Market Avenue North in the amount not to exceed $1,700.
We need a correction there. There's
Yeah,
placement of the commas wrong.
Yeah.
It should be
$17,000
$17,000.
Yeah.
to be taken as follows: $11,000 from Fund 10-A-10A, $6,000 from Fund number 28-A-07C.
I'll move on FD number 2 as edited.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion, a long time coming. We're getting closer.
It's getting closer.
So at this point, we're probably looking at by the time the connection's made, it has to sit for 30 days.
Yeah, once they finish the main line right now, it has to sit 30 days before they can do anything, and then we can start
Sometime in February.
working in. And we have used Underground Services before here at the township.
Yeah. Joe, use it. You use these guys, right?
Yes, they've done, so I've known the owner of that company,
Yeah.
I've talked to Chuck about it, and he's very reputable, and it's nice work. We've hired him for the department a couple times.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fire Department number 3 is a resolution to authorize the payment to a LadTech online employee scheduling and workforce management system for a subscription period from 2/1/19 to 1/31/2020 in the amount not to exceed $3,420, and that's to be taken from Fund Number 10A-15 in the amount of $1,710, and Fund Number 28-A-09 in the amount of $1,710.
Also move.
Second's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fire Department number 4 is a resolution to authorize the reimbursement listed below in the total amount not to exceed $400 for their health care membership according to provision 37 of collective bargaining agreement to be taken from account 10-A-15 for firefighter Scott Yana.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Okay, Fire Department number 5 is a resolution to grant the request for tuition reimbursement in the amount not to exceed $1,000 each paid to firefighter Cameron Martin and firefighter Patrick Martinez according to the current collective bargaining agreement provision 27 section E. The total amount of $2,000 is to be taken from Fund 10-A-15.
So moved.
I will second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
As soon as we get here.
No pressure.
Yeah. Fire Department number 6 is a resolution to change the pay rate of part-time firefighter, now paramedic Isaac Hall, to $15.50 an hour without benefits, as wages were set per resolution 18-148 on 3/27/18. Isaac Hall has successfully completed his paramedic training with Stark County and the state of Ohio, and his pay rate will go into effect on January 13, 2019 at 0700 hours.
So moved.
Second's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Just nice to see progression clearly within even that part-time rank.
Yeah, he's a young man, very excited, very aggressive, and, you know, he traveled to Columbus or Cincinnati to get his registry done ASAP. He didn't wait for it to come to the area.
Wow.
He went and completed it. So,
That's the,
Yeah, it's definitely happy. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Okay, Fire Department number 7 is a resolution to amend Resolution 18-662 that extends an offer of employment to Vicki Lloyd to the position of Executive Assistant for the Fire Department, effective 12/30/2018. Be it further resolved to authorize a pay rate of $19.70 per hour to be paid from Fund 10-A-01C. Benefits will be according to current Plain Township Employee Handbook.
So moved.
Second's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes. And last.
Is the Fire Department Annual Report. Had a very busy year. Grants we got, DWC grant for protective gear, grant for diesel capture system, EMS grant, you know. We put a new medic truck in service, training building was completed. We had a goal to lower our dispatch times, which we will be able to see from call to dispatch to the firefighters, that time has decreased. We initiated a quality assurance program for EMS calls. Didn't get a lot of response back, but the little bit of response we got back, all of it was positive, so it was good to see that, even though it was a small response back. But obviously, we were able to increase our manpower. We're in the middle of the radio upgrade process at this time. Hopefully that'll be completed by the end of the month. And the ongoing sewer project for Station 4 is nearing completion every day. So been a pretty productive year. And the next thing you see here is our time to dispatch is down to like 103, which I believe it was up around a minute and a half or so before. So I don't know that for sure, but I'm thinking that's where it was. And the reaction time and the response time is right, we're pretty steady where it's been before.
It's 30% reduction.
Yeah,
just
that's
about.
really.
And then the next item you see here, our total EMS and fire calls for the year were 5,183 for the year 2018. And with the graph here, no surprise, EMS is our biggest response.
Fire Department USA.
I removed January's report and just put the year end to spare you guys January's numbers.
Next slide is our fire training. I'm sure the board knows, as well as most departments in the county, I don't think there's a department that trains like we train. And one of the pictures here is our crews at the Akron-Canton Airport fighting a airline plane, fire.
That's pretty cool.
And that was a pretty exciting day after the thunderstorm rolled through. But you can see, you know, we do vehicle extrication, fire suppression, driver training, search and rescue, tanker ops. You know, it just, the list goes on and on. And we train weekly. And I think the way our firefighters perform is proof that that's a good thing. Next slide is EMS training. That is also something that we regularly do here at the fire department. And just a few things there, you know, we have some geriatric training, autism. We try to go into some different areas that our paramedics are having to deal with out in the community. So, you know, we had a gentleman come in to go over how to deal with an autistic child. It's actually his own, and he was from an autism organization. And documentation's always something that you have to work on. Dealing with children and children burns and things like that, a lot of trauma, seizures. And then one of the newer things that's coming of age is going over the firefighter cancer awareness and what we need to do to protect ourselves after a fire response. Our investigation and inspections, you can see we have 130 building inspections. Hard to believe car seat inspections. You know, a few years ago we probably never would have thought about that, but we're pretty busy at doing those. A lot of people call in on a routine basis just to have car seats put in and stuff, so pretty busy with that. Permits issued, structure and vehicle fire investigations, 19. Safety City, we had a great attendance this year with 103 students participating in that. And fire station tours and safety talks, we did 35 of those. The 2018 equipment testing and stuff like that's the annual stuff that we have to do to keep our equipment in good condition and firefighters safe. So we tested 537 feet of ladders, 22,000 feet of hose, all 8 of our pumpers, and 34 self-contained breathing apparatus. And then you go into the other part of our fire department patch, which is education, and this is all student mentorship. We have Stark State EMTs and paramedics that ride with us routinely on our crews. to help their learning process through school. We also have Glen Oak Health Tech high school students, and also Glen Oak's career nursing program high school students that ride with us as well. Partnership with Mercy Hospital for 16 hours. And something that was new this year that I think was enlightening for our crews and our dispatchers was we had dispatchers come ride with us for a period of time too, so they saw our side of how things go over the radio and stuff, so that was pretty good. CPR classes, 355 students certified, ACLS, which is Advanced Cardiac Life Support, 52, and PALS, which is Pediatric Life Support, we had 12 students. Our community outreach, we're always very active in that. We participate in ACBC Summer Camp. We got another American Heart Association Mission Lifeline Award, Who at the School, and different things like that you see. And probably, you know, to top the year off, the Veterans Day event at the fire station. Some of the pictures of those. We added to the end of it here our picture of each of our shifts with all of our staff listed here. We're now up to 43 full-time firefighter paramedics, 4 part-time firefighter paramedics, 4 part-time firefighter EMTs, 1 fire prevention officer, 2 deputy chiefs, 1 chief, 1 fire secretary, 1 IT health and safety officer, and 1 fire chaplain. And that's our fire department members. Yeah, I think Eric's included. And then after that, you see our summary report. Monthly call volume.
That's a pretty big stat, isn't it? What's that came up? Per ship? 12?
That's 14 per shift.
How many? 14? That's awesome.
Right now, 1 shift has 50.
That's really good compared to years ago. That's awesome.
You see the different call volumes for the different districts. Station 2 and Station 3 routinely over the years has been busier districts. Shift call volume.
Okay.
Thanks, Chief.
Yeah,
That's all I have.
you picked up 9 feet, pretty feet to come to for a fire department business.
Walking through the steps of our fire chiefs who like to talk a lot.
Okay. Thank you.
Good job.
Thanks, Chief. That takes us to the road department, Mr. Iacino.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item number 1 is the 2018 annual report, and I'll give you the Cliff Note version of it.
Please.
Paved 16.8 miles, 9 miles of road. We did a lot of pipe replacement. With the addition of our new camera, that's going to only increase this time.
That's awesome.
If you have any questions about it,
That's
give me
awesome.
a call. Sorry. We had a good year. You guys did a good job. We had a lot of
Especially with the talent.
changes in our personnel. And
Yeah.
A lot of in-house paving too,
All for
Joe.
the good, too.
Yeah,
A lot of in-house paving
Yeah.
work.
a lot of young guys that, they're learning, everyone's learning, so, our ways.
Good.
All right, item number 2 is a resolution by the Board of Trustees to authorize the purchase of gasoline, oil, and diesel from McIntosh Oil not to exceed $20,000.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino,
Yes.
Mr. Sabo,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's pretty good, doing all this stuff.
All right, thanks, Joe. That takes us to zoning, Mr. Farrar.
Thank you, sir. Item number 1 is the annual report.
Everybody's had great years, but there's 2 things I just want to call out, Tom, on yours, I think that are impressive. I mean, we've seen almost $18 million investment, about 12.5 million in annual residential housing, and then another 5.5 in commercial additions. So Plain Township's definitely open for business, getting stuff done. But I think, you know, the thing that's not necessarily sexy or popular with the public, but is something that's critical factors. When we take a look at the total number of abatements, and it's only 14% of complaints. When you take that there's 68, that means we've had 486 complaints. If we would have mitigated those, or got the folks to do something beforehand, that means a lot of dollars out of the budget that are sitting tied up. We've got to go out on all this, so.
And in the past, before Tom, we would get 68 nuisance abatements in
During
2
that.
months' time.
So I continue to applaud you in the efforts over it, because that's how you make me money, how you saving me money, and how are you avoiding cost. And right there, you're saving and avoiding, so.
I think we had a very good year as far as new housing starts to 70 this year. And with
That's all we got.
another development opening up, I foresee us doing much better than that next year. People are moving in.
That's,
We welcome you, Tom.
yeah, that's good news. Anything else? Okay, next then. The zoning amendment.
The next item on the agenda is zoning amendment 569-18. That is to discuss adding text to the Plain Township zoning resolution, limiting the placement of commercial dumpster and roll-off container bins in all R1, R1A, R2 zoning districts within Plain Township. And the text is,
This was already before region, this was before regional planning. We've taken a look at this before, so
yes,
now it's just needing us to.
to approve.
Well, is there a resolution to approve?
I don't.
I thought we approved it.
See, that's what I thought. I thought it was part of it.
I
Yeah.
thought we did.
All it shows is on
Did you do
Can
it
we
last meeting? Approve it or
I'm-
discuss?
No,
Was it
it
the
was
top
it
one?
was not approved.
Yeah, it
Wasn't
couldn't have been,
approved?
because you didn't have it back from regional planning.
No.
You'll have
Oh.
We
to
can-
table it,
Well,
or,
make a I'm not, just waiting for a piece of paper that says,
I want to make sure we get the language right on
Yeah.
these,
yeah,
because it comes directly from.
and then it has to go in the paper for,
Yeah,
it has to go in the newspaper,
that
and
language will go.
I think we might want to wait till we have it correct.
well, not that it's incorrect.
Oh, no, the language is correct, it's just correct, having a resolution to adopt that has the correct adoption language, and when it'll be in the paper.
Is that,
Do we have to table that?
What do we have, what have you brought?
Well, there's no, we wouldn't have to table if there wasn't a resolution yet, right?
Well.
That's
if
what
you-
I'm
if
saying.
you- Yeah, we brought it,
We don't,
what do we
there's
have?
no resolution
It's
to
in
move
front
on,
of us,
so.
I mean, this is one where tying it back to the first one, that there's big dumpsters over
Right.
by those single wide trailers where
Yeah, that's
Correct.
we were trying to get this.
With all the issues with text, with all the issues with text and people
Yeah.
looking closely
Tom,
at
do you
text, I
know-
do the
is there
resolution.
any timeline wonder with getting it back from regional planning?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
it had to be heard tonight, and if we table it, it has met that
Okay,
criteria.
this is for the text change to add commercial trash container, talk about donation collection bins, correct?
Yes.
Mhm.
All right, is there anyone here in the audience that wants to speak for or against this issue? The text change in the zoning amendment regarding commercial trash containers and the donation and collection bins? Any takers? All right, having said that, I would suggest you bring it to the floor and then table it. You will have to bring it to the floor as if it's a resolution. We're just gonna do the resolution at the next meeting.
I will then move to bring this subject of approval of text amendment 569-18 to the floor. Need a second on
I'll
that?
second that.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion.
Now I suggest that we table that.
Now, do I do a motion?
Yeah, just do a motion to table that.
So I would make a motion to table this for our next meeting, waiting for the resolution language.
Yeah, second that.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion.
Just, Tom, this was, thanks. I know you
Yeah.
researched this, you found a community that did have it, and it may never come in front of us again, but we have it, because it was touchy at first, and we had that gentleman here, that, you know, good job on it.
Yeah, and who would have ever believed?
Who would ever believe,
There
right?
would be somebody that would want to
Right.
use a roll-off dumpster
20
as
to
their,
40 yard.
yeah, that as their
Yeah.
trash
That's a
container.
trash can, yeah, good job.
So Eric, do I bring forward the other three?
Are there 3 more?
Yes.
Yeah, then yes.
Can we don't do them all at once?
You can do it once.
To table them?
Yeah, to table them. Actually, to be safe, let's do 3 of them, whatever they are.
Okay. A second item on the agenda is Amendment 570-18 to discuss adding text to the Plain Township resolution limiting the placement of donation collection bins in all residential districts in S1 and B1 zoning districts within Plain Township.
I will move to bring text amendment 570-18 to the floor.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, and then I will make a motion to table that for our next meeting.
There you go.
You vote on that motion.
Yeah, we need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to table, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 3, Amendment 571-18 is discussing adding the definition of a commercial dumpster and roll-off container to the Plain Township zoning resolution.
I will move to bring text amendment 571-18 to the floor.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and then I will make a motion to table that for our next meeting.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And finally, number 4 is text amendment 572-18 to discuss adding the definition of a donation collection bin to the Plain Township zoning resolution.
I will move to bring text amendment 572-18 to the floor.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded, and then I will make a motion to table that for our next meeting.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And that's all I have, sir.
All right, for that, thank you, Mr. Farrar. And that then takes us to Parks, Mr. Steinberg.
Thank you. Item number 1 is my annual report. I can entertain questions now or after the meeting.
Good year, revenues are,
We only dropped off revenue about 4.5%, and I think that's probably in direct relation to the receipts not being here with lacrosse and going also. But
However, you have that bill
reservations,
for next year
I do.
with,
I have business that has already been filled and new business coming in, and I also have a growth, obviously, in shelter reservations and concessions and other areas too, so it mitigates a lot of that as well.
and just a note for the board, the items done at the Parks and Township Hall, those did come out of the general fund.
That's correct.
Yes.
Any questions regarding that? All right, number 2.
Thank you. Item number 2 is a resolution to authorize payment to Jennifer Lucy in the amount of $8360.76 to be taken from Fund 01F OAH for services in organizing the 2017-18 Heroes on the Move 5K.
also,
I'll second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion.
I think this is one of those things, is we did with lacrosse, we've got to look at revenue expense. No, when it was started, the intention was, hey, the net proceeds come to the township for the benefit of the veterans. Hillside, my understanding is the receipts were positive, so there's a net donation that is occurring and wouldn't have occurred if it hadn't been for the event. However, I think the logistical
question that all three of us have is, you know, any event, whether it's this or lacrosse or it's rugby or big time wrestling, whatever it may be within parks, if somebody's gonna do something that's gonna be for the benefit and enrichment, they're gonna have to manage a P&L, then it's just a net check donation to the township, because, I mean, looking a year back, that's just my opinion.
Oh, I agree. I think that anytime we do anything where we're gonna have to pay out 1 penny, regardless of whether we get a whole bunch of money back, I think we need to go on that as an official partner for that event. And not only get the recognition, but obviously, that just puts us in a more formal position. You know, these are great events. I'm not, this whole thing is great, but, you know, anything that we do, because we're gonna have, and it goes on record that we are that official partner, and it goes on record that we have provided manpower with, and all the things that we do that we provide for. I think from a liability standpoint, that makes us a little safer as well. So I would agree.
That was just based upon, I think, Lisa Rogers report, there was, what was essential duplication possibly could have through, say, a partnership.
Yes. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
That concludes parks, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steinberg. That takes us then to, nothing from the law director, that takes us to communications.
Thank you. Item number 1 is a notice that you're invited to join SARTA as they unveil their future draft plan of public transit and mobility services in Stark County on Monday, January 14th from 2 to 4 p.m. at the main branch of the Stark County Library. Item number 2 is a letter and invitation to join the Glen Oak High School for their annual Celebrate Diversity event. The theme is Be a Champion, Stronger Together. That is Thursday, January 17th from 6 to 8:30 p.m. at Glen Oak High School. I do, however, want to remind the board and department heads that is also, God bless you, the night of the next Stark County Township Association. Scott, you serve as a board member, and many of us are involved, so, you know, as much as we'd like to attend, we have a conflict that evening, but I did just want to make you aware of that. Yeah, and that's the end of communications.
Thank you. That then takes us to the portion of the meeting of public speaks. If there's anybody in the audience that wishes to address the board, please feel free to give your name and address to the fiscal officer. And I'm guessing nobody wants to.
All bashful students here for
But
some
I'm
type of
also
project.
guessing you guys are here as a class project or class requirement. What school are you guys from? Are you from Glen Oak?
No, Canton Central Catholic.
Okay, so you're from Central. Are you guys from Glen Oak?
Central.
Central, oh, so you're all from Central?
I think it speaks volumes, all these other school districts were here.
Yeah.
We got that
Yeah, get them on camera so their
yeah.
teacher can see them
The
here.
teacher can see it.
So, and yeah, everything is videoed officially, so, you know, if you need, obviously you want us to sign something, right? Yeah, but, so we have a lot of people that do this, so, you know, pretty much is the same way. You don't have to speak if you don't want to.
Just so you're aware, I mean, with the beginning of the year, it's a little longer meeting, and it's also a little longer of a meeting with Mr. Sabo running it than when Mr. Lino had to fill
Yeah.
in.
Could be hard.
Come back during hunting season next year. Deer season.
We can change that first.
I blame it all on
Start the
Bill.
new year on a festive
Even
note.
out here
Sorry,
20 minutes
John.
ago, Bill wasn't reading letter for letter.
I think it's my reputation. It follows me everywhere.
It is the reputation of the fire department.
All right. so, that takes us to concerns of trustees quickly. I just wanna, I worked with Joe on an issue with some, safety issues at St. Mike's School and St. Mike's Boulevard, and, I get a call, and, so I knew the speed buggy was gonna be over there this morning, actually. So, I decided to kind of see what the before and after is. If you really want an introduction to the speed buggy and what it does, you have to see the before and the after. Because yesterday I sat there for about a half hour watching parents bring kids to school, and nobody slowed down, okay? This morning when the speed buggy was up, that thing where it was located picked up people coming in off of Fulton Road, like just right off of Fulton Road. And it was dark, and all I had to do was watch the headlights, and as soon as that sign came on, the headlights ducked down in front of people hitting their brakes. So I can tell you that sign is effective. Unfortunately, it can't be there all the time, but it definitely is positive when it's in neighborhoods. People do pay attention to that, so.
Well, I think I mean, Joe, we've even talked about it before. I mean, the total traffic count over there for the limited time.
Yeah, it's not.
I mean,
It's all.
I mean, we essentially have a homeowners association that's pushing for special expensive lighting that I can tell you predicated on just numbers outside of actions, because those actions will happen no matter where that speed trailer sits.
Correct.
I can't support that type of cost. I know talking with Brian Cole from the engineer, he said he shot over some details.
I just got an email before I came over.
I mean, at most, the flash, he said possibly a flashing light, that's the same thing you recommend. Then it really becomes a matter of who's gonna bear the cost of the upfront versus the maintenance. And I think, you know, if they wanna have any type of serious conversation, that they're gonna have to look at that, because, I mean, we can make the same argument in every other school district, and or around every school building. What makes that, which technically is a private, you know.
Well, I actually asked that
School.
question, Scott, and it's our road and right away, so, you know what I mean? Because I did ask that question. And Brian's email to me, he gave me two different brands that he's used and Jackson Township's used. One is $6,500 for 2 school lights, and the other one's $8,000 for 2 school lights. And these are both solar powered, so it wouldn't be any harder, but you're still gonna have to hire an electrician to install them. So,
But what I'm saying is outside of the right of way, the fact is that, I mean, you've got public schools, public right of way is what I'm looking at with these others. Over here, yeah, you got public right of way, it's private school.
by state law, we are all right with what's there.
Okay.
Correct, because the signage is there.
Yeah, the sign.
The only thing I would think that, and I talked to Joe earlier, is maybe we get painted on the street again, because, you know, a lot of those have school zone
Yeah,
paint,
crossing.
yeah.
We can do that, you know.
But they need to do some things as well, because logistically, that whole thing is created by their drop-off and pickup. And they're dropping off and picking up on a public street. So and working with them, I think we can coordinate some things, like that time of the morning, it was dark when you're talking this morning, and it gets super busy between about 7:35 and 10 till 8. And they have some pretty good lighting, but I'm guessing that lighting is on a timer because it went out a little early. So they may need to work with their custodians, monitor that. But the absolute most expensive they chose to do it would be some kind of LED flashing light that they would turn on when they got there and turn off, because you're only talking 20-minute time frame. And it's not all school year, because once you start to have that lightness then in the morning, the way that they have that system the safety of those kids is all on the west side of St. Michael's, and, you know, the darkness factor is gone. The people that are actually speeding through there are the parents wanting to drop their kids off.
Yeah, it's not the people that live in the.
No. No, not at all. Anyhow, I think, you know, that this speed buggy
Thanks
is,
for taking the time to sit
Yeah.
there and actually watch it.
yeah, it was interesting. I just found that to be interesting.
We'll leave it out tomorrow afternoon, we'll switch it directions.
Okay.
And see what we get, so we'll have 2.5 days in each direction.
Yeah.
Friday.
All right.
Bring it in.
Good. Okay. Anything else?
Actually, I did have something
All right.
I saw come through on our email, it didn't actually come to the three of us. We have a resident, Denise Otania. She lives off of Pine Tree, and essentially she's requesting the township to install 2 additional stop signs at the intersection of Pine Tree and Alpine in front of Alpine Park. I'm just putting this on the record since she could come here, we know how this works. Noting it has become more populated and congested as time goes on. I've lived at the intersection of the streets for almost 2 years now. I've heard and seen the number of close calls, which unfortunately, that's people that are running the stop sign and so forth on occasion.
That's,
When you're
stop
going,
signs are on Pine Tree.
yes, they are.
So the Alpine's got into the park and out of the park.
Yeah, and what I've seen just from back, when I used to live back there is you get people that just blow through it, which,
To add to, you're creating a 4-way stop
Yeah,
that they
which-
made us do away with several over the years.
yeah. So if we can, Joe, I forwarded it,
Yeah, I got
you
it.
might just call her and say, hey, I've been in receipt of it. And just give her the legal,
Okay. Yeah, I'll call it.
and then,
She plans on coming to the next meeting,
or
she says,
I thought,
at the end.
oh,
So, in the meantime, I can get Brian Cole out there to do a quick study on that if you guys want it.
I know we were, you know, I mean, we address this issue every time we talk about stop signs. You can't use it for speed.
Can't control.
Can you not use them though for the purpose of safety? When you're talking a park, in conjunction with connection to a park.
Sure, you can use them for safety, it's just that a lot of times what we've found is that when you create a 4-way stop, it doesn't get safer. It actually goes the opposite way.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't
And
have a
I'd
study
like to
done.
pull sheriff's, or any records of any accidents that we've had in
Yeah.
the intersection. That weighs big on
Well,
whether
sure,
we're
sure.
having any
Can
accidents.
you get those for us, Brian? Okay.
Anecdotally, I don't think we've had any notable history of crashes there.
Yeah, I don't-
hold
I think-
records to verify.
I don't recall.
The county does it.
Okay.
Well, can we just kind of tie that up with, I think Joe and I both think that this isn't necessarily for speed, as you alluded to, John. It might behoove us to at least talk about getting a study done there.
Brian will
Because
do that in-house.
since you brought it into the
You know, he'll-
turn of safety issue,
Yeah.
we might as, I mean, you know, they do that stuff for us pretty comprehensively and pretty cost effectively.
I can give him a call tomorrow and see if he can have something by the next meeting.
I'm good.
I mean, we should use our engineering office for what we need it for.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Okay. We have approval of the minutes of December 18th. I will move on the approval of the minutes.
second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call,
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And we do have a need for an executive session. Be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to adjourn to executive session at 7:10 p.m. from the regular meeting of January 8th as authorized under Ohio Revised Code 121.22G for the purpose of the consideration of number 4, preparing for, conducting, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion,
Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.